Today we are starting in on one of the best upgrades that I am the most excited about. In the 7 years of ownership of this camper, we are about to make a change that is going to save us a ton of money, a ton of propane as a hint, and it's going to allow us to be off-grid longer, utilizing some of the massive amounts of energy that we have up on our roof for solar and our massive battery bank in order to better equip this camper to be one of the most off-road and off-grid prevalent campers on the internet. But first, in order to start this project, we have to go pick up the product. So what we're going to pick up today could be here on Thursday. It is Monday morning as I'm filming this. I didn't want to wait another 3 days to get this item and start on this project. I really wanted to get moving on it. That way I can get to Utah, which is my next stop in our full-time travel life, so I can work on boats, make some extra money. You'll notice that the passenger seat does not have a Marissa in it. Marissa is on the East Coast dealing with all our Airbnb stuff, resupplying, restocking, setting them up for another 6 months of success. If you're new around here, this is kind of a normal routine thing for Marissa and I. Every 6 months, she goes home, deals with Airbnb stuff, and during that time, I will usually be in Salt Lake City, Utah, working on boats, which is, like I mentioned before, where I'm headed next. But real quickly, let's get to our destination of Newcastle in order to pick this item up. A little over 2 hours later, and we have arrived at our destination to pick up our newest upgrade. I did stop at a Lowe's on the way here, got some 2x4s because the way we're going to be transporting this new upgrade is going to be on our dirt bike carrier over here, and those have some bolts coming up through them. I also am going to be using ratchet straps, so I want to make sure I don't damage it, all that good stuff. So I'm going to have to do some cutting and some setting up here. I got my 2x4s out here. The guy is about to bring it over with a forklift. Let's see how this goes. So this is our new 12-volt fridge made by Norcold, provided to us today by eTrailer.com, who is the sponsor of this video and many of our videos, and we thank them so much for that. We'll get into more about how you can find this on eTrailer's website yourself, but for the moment, let's get this thing loaded up and headed back to Dalton's house. Fridge is all strapped down, ready to go. If everything goes smoothly, we'll see in a couple hours, we'll get back. All right, we're back. Back at Dalton's house, and gotta unstrap this thing. Let's get this fridge off the truck, start thinking about putting it in. So the big question is going to be, will it fit through the door? Worst case, we'll have to take the door out and the trim or the frame of the door out as well. I talked to some other folks who have a similar age camper who have already done this upgrade, and they told me that they had to take their door off, but we're gonna see if we can finagle it.
This sexy piece of RV goodness is our Norcold Polar 8, an 8.2 cubic foot DC compressor, fridge, and freezer that's efficient enough you'll barely notice it's drawing any power. Typically sips between 2 and 4 amps, which is about as good as it gets for keeping your ice cream rock solid and your drinks ice cold. And yeah, the efficiency is awesome, but I'm just as pumped about the fact that it's 24% larger than our old fridge, while still sliding right into the factory opening. On top of that, it's lighter than our previous 3-way fridge, which matters more than people think when you're hauling a truck camper and every pound counts. If you're shopping for a new fridge or literally any other RV accessory, eTrailer has you covered. Check the links in the description below if you want to learn more or grab your own Norcold Polar 8 from eTrailer.com.
Been a little bit over 24 hours, and although it doesn't look like much has changed, this door is completely ready to come out. Now, this isn't a video about removing a door, but it was terrible. Just so you know, they use butyl tape around the whole perimeter of the door, and to get that off after it's been there for 20 years is a nightmare. You'll want a blow dryer or a heat gun. You'll want a, let's see, I got them over here. Use this body panel clip removal tool. That worked awesome. And then I also used a paint scraper, which was very helpful to try and wedge it in there between the door frame and the body of the camper to separate that old butyl tape. But definitely plan to allocate a lot of time to removing your door if you're gonna make this fridge transition like we are today. Inside we have a now empty fridge. I took a picture of my grocery list here because this thing's not removable. Now let's work on trying to figure out how this old fridge is gonna come out so that we can bring the new one in. Door number one out. So plan is to take this fridge out in pieces. The rumors that I've heard from the very little research I've done is that this fridge is so big that some people have to cut it up in order to get it through the door, even with the door frame removed. So one, this makes it lighter by taking it apart by pieces, but two, increases our probability of success of getting this fridge out the door. So what I'm realizing is that a lot of these fridges are designed to where the doors could open either way. So if you're ever on eTrailer's website, for example, and you see that they only have a left-hand Norcold Polar 8 12-volt fridge available, and you need a right-hand door, know that you can flip-flop those doors. So I don't know if there's any mounting screws from the back side of the fridge, but I'm gonna go check just in case and disconnect some power. In the back of the fridge here, it does look like there's a fair amount of stuff to be separated. DC power coming in, AC power, so that's super easy, right? Just super easy. And then the next item will be the propane, which of course my adjustable is not the big enough. Proper size adjustable here. Make sure you shut off your propane. Don't be stupid. I not only shut my propane off, but I drained it at the stove so that we should have very little propane left in this line so we don't go boom. Also, legal mumbo jumbo. I'm not an expert at any of this. I'm not a professional. I'm just a guy documenting how I did it. Does not mean you should duplicate exactly how I am. Make sure you look at proper protocols on installation and removal of all processes here in today's YouTube video. Oh yeah. Nice. Yep, there's that sweet smell of propane. I took out all the other screws that I could find that would relate to keeping this fridge in place. My hope is that there are not any from the top side. I, one, don't have a ladder tall enough, and two, don't feel like climbing up there. So let's hop inside and see if we can pull this fridge out. Well, I didn't record the initial pull, but I got it kind of freed up here. I just heard a boom from outside, so I'm gonna go check on that. But feels like we should be able to wiggle this thing out and hopefully onto the floor. Still have a strong aroma of propane leaking out of this thing, even though everything's shut off. Definitively shut off.
This absolute legend helping me get the fridge out of the truck camper is Steve, Dalton's stepdad, who is visiting from Massachusetts, and I could not appreciate his assistance more with getting this super heavy, awkward fridge out of my camper, and then also helping me get the new fridge up and in super easy. Steve and I both noticed the immediate weight difference between the old fridge and the new fridge.
Steve was being smart, measuring, which I didn't really do. I realized that a propane line that was here, the supply line for the old fridge, would be in the way of the new fridge. So what we're gonna do is separate it under here. So I've got a little elbow that I'm taking out now, and I'm gonna have to go to the store at some point and buy a cap in this particular thread pattern and setup so that we can plug our propane and still have our cooktop. Because I've already managed to touch these two contacts and we are working with live electricity here, I'm gonna cut these off and throw some butt connectors on it. And now that we got these things hooked up with some butt connectors, we'll be ready to wire in our fridge, but also they can touch each other all they want and no sparky spark. So the next tedious task is going to be scraping off all of the silicone or butyl tape, whatever it was, that is on the door frame. Steve helped me out, got a lot of the door itself, or the entryway itself, all cleaned up. And so we're just gonna try and seal this camper up for the night and then probably figure out how to permanently mount the fridge tomorrow. It is officially beer 30. Not full celebration time yet, but we do have a door back on. Got some butyl tape sticking out of the side. That'll all get trimmed off eventually. Some silicone or Dicor around the edges to seal it up. But for now, we need to focus on trying to get the doors back on this fridge. Well, as my motivation begins to descend into nothingness, we're going to at least get these doors on, even though I can't quite screw the fridge down the way I want to. Hopefully at least I can get it running and get my food out of Dalton and Amanda's fridge. Little side note, if you're going to take this top piece off like I did, make sure you're very careful with the wires. Sorry for blinding you, because it's very easy to disconnect wires on the back side of the control box or whatever this computer board is, and then that can cause an error code, which is what I got when I first turned it on. Quick search on ChatGPT told me that you probably have some wires unplugged in. Sure enough, I do. Plan is, now that we got the fridge all wired up correctly and none of my mistakes are negatively affecting it, I'm gonna work on sliding this thing back in here, but also I'm gonna turn it on and we're gonna test how long it takes for this fridge to cool down to, let's call it 40 degrees, which is the starting temperature in which you want to be putting your cold items in your fridge to keep them safe. Anything I think between freezing and 40 is considered food grade safe. So this is a little Bluetooth temperature and humidity sensor that I had in my old fridge, mostly because it was inconsistent in terms of what temperatures it could create. But we'll see how long it takes with this device for it to go from, it's probably about 70 in here, high 60s, low 70s. I'll try and hang it somewhere kind of central inside of the fridge. And to turn it on, it's just as simple as hold this power button down and it's on. So that's kind of the beauty of these DC fridges. They are truly a 2-wire setup. Positive and a ground. Obviously they need to be a thick enough wiring gauge in order to supply power properly to this, but because our old fridge was also capable of running on DC and would pull typically around 14 amps at DC, and this one is only designed to run at typically around like 7.5 amps with a max of 15. That should mean that we have more than enough wiring to power this thing safely without having to worry about our wires getting hot. Step this temperature up to 5, assuming that's the cold. What's also nice too that I just realized is you have zone control over your fridge and freezer. So if you want your freezer to be distinctly colder than your fridge, which most people would, right? You want to have your freezer be super cold, keep your food items hard as ice, and then on the flip side, your fridge temp, maybe you don't want it to be super cold, you want it to be modest, and we'll kind of feel that out based on having that Bluetooth temperature humidity sensor in there. So right now I've got all the lights off in the camper. There are still some other things that are running perpetually, like we have Starlink running right now, the fan for the composting toilet, and then the freezer in the back seat of the truck. And at this moment, we're pulling 12.36 amps. What I'm gonna do is shut the fridge off, and we'll see how much this changes in order to know how much power we're pulling just with the fridge to start up and get cold, which should be the most extreme amount of amperage needed in order to get this thing from room temp down to very cold. And then I'm sure it will settle off and then use less energy. So as I'm about to shut this off, the amperage consumption has bumped up to about 13 amps that we're pulling. Oh, that's hardly anything. We're only pulling 9.5. So that means we're using about 4 amps to run this fridge freezer right now at the warmest state that it will hopefully ever be. And then we'll get it down to nice and cold. Good morning. We had our first successful overnight with the new fridge, and I wanted to go over with you guys some of the statistics on how the fridge performed, how long it took to cool off, like we were talking about last night, and then an estimate on how much energy we used running the fridge overnight for the first night. So I'll put this up on the screen so that you can see a little better, but our fridge last night went from 75 degrees to 37 degrees, so essentially almost a 40-degree drop in 2 hours. 2 hours time. That is incredibly impressive. If you don't own an RV or a truck camper already, you may not be aware that a three-way fridge like what we had before, where it runs on AC, DC, and propane, take forever, typically about 24 hours to get cooled off. This happened in 2 hours. And the other very unique information that I can see on this temperature chart is that there's almost no fluctuation in the temperature once it got down to where I had it set to be. With our previous fridge, you would have just roller coaster over and over again when it would turn on, and I'm guaranteeing that this fridge is going to be far better suited for extreme temperatures than our previous fridge, where if it was, say, above 90 degrees outside, our fridge would have a really hard time staying around 40 degrees. Sometimes it would be as high as 55 degrees. We've had food go bad simply because of the fact that the fridge couldn't keep up with the exterior heat fighting against the fridge itself. So this fridge is already doing better, and I can't wait to see how it performs when we're in Mexico over the winter. So now let's discuss energy consumed. I don't have a perfect way to show you guys exactly how much energy was consumed overnight. I do have a whole lot of experience with this camper and our battery setup and knowing about how much energy we use on a regular evening. Typically, if we get a full charge during the day, I wake up the next morning, look at my Victron app, and I'll see that the battery is at about 70% of its capacity. This morning I woke up and it showed that we were at about 60% of our capacity. So 10% of a 410 amp hour battery should be about 41 amp hours that we consumed last night. Now keep in mind, the fridge also needed to come down from 75 degrees to its proper temperature. I turned that on at about 6 p.m. So that's already past when we were making solar. And at that point, we're just using our battery in order to get the fridge cold. However, I didn't utilize the nighttime mode that this fridge has, which is designed to cut down on the amount of energy that it uses overnight when you're not replenishing with solar. I didn't turn that on simply because I wanted to make sure that everything was getting cold inside of the fridge. I brought some food back in last night, put some ice cubes in there or some water in there in ice trays to make ice cubes. All of those reasons and more. Just wanted to see how much energy it will utilize on one night. But I definitely believe that we'll end up using less energy tonight, for example, now that the fridge is already cooled down, been running, and satisfied. Another thing that I discovered is this little bag of goodies. I didn't realize that it was going to be in the little veggie drawer down at the bottom of the fridge, but this has our screws, little caps, in order to mount this fridge into the sidewall of our camper. So that is going to be our last install step here this morning. It also includes an instruction manual and owner's manual. Probably would have been smart of me to check the fridge earlier yesterday and utilize those. Thankfully, installing this fridge is straightforward enough that you can pretty much do it without the instructions. While I'm putting in these screws, I'll let you guys know about a couple of differences between this fridge and a normal fridge that they're not negative. It's just things that I noticed within the first 12 hours of having this thing running. Mostly, it's a little bit louder than a normal fridge. Like, you can hear the compressor running at night. Marissa will never hear it because she sleeps like a baby, but if you're a little bit of a lighter sleeper, you might hear the fridge kick on, kick off, that compressor sound of it running. It definitely does make a small audible noise. Oh, I need a longer bit. Man, Welcome to Salt Lake City, Utah. I did the long drive, 6 hours from Oak Creek, Colorado to here, specifically in Orem, Utah, where if you're a longtime viewer of the channel, you have seen this parking lot before. I work on boats for a living in order to make extra money while we're on the road here at Premier Marine. Today, we are going to be doing a little bit of the finishing touches on our fridge install. I have been using our new fridge for the last couple of days, and it has been awesome. I barely notice a difference in terms of the electricity that gets consumed on a daily basis. Yesterday, driving here from Colorado, super cloudy, DC to DC charger did all the work. Today, we got a lot more sun, not driving nearly as much. Solar panels are killing it. But let's show you what we need to work on today. So if you look closely behind the control panel of the fridge, there's daylight out there. If you look real closely, you can see the vent fans that I had installed for our propane fridge in order to try and get that hot air out of the side of the camper. Today we're going to insulate around the fridge from the back side of it, along with the edges here with some spray foam in order to close this gap up before the weather starts to get cold here in Salt Lake City, Utah. I don't know if this step system that they use for displays of boats is going to be tall enough for me to get in here and stuff the insulation where I need it to be. So where we want to be putting this insulation is back up by that computer board of the fridge. I have very low expectations that this thing is going to fit on the first try. Probably going to need to be some trimming done. So I got our R7.5 insulation board installed. Not the prettiest, but at the same time, it's in there. Got some of this tape to seal up any gaps, try and prevent airflow and drafts. The next part is my least favorite of any insulation. I shouldn't say that, it's probably not true. It's not fun. We're gonna do some spray foam. And the reason I don't love it is because it inherently always makes a mess. So I've got my spray foam here. We've got a pretty decent gap on the left side of the fridge, tight gap on the right side, and then a big gap on the bottom. Let's see if we can do this without making a huge mess. Starting with the bottom in hopes that we can build up sort of a base, if you will, of foam here. Oh boy, yeah, there she is. It always just keeps going. You let go and then it keeps going. Paper towel, paper towel. Not a terrible mess. Honestly, I've done way worse with spray foam in the past with other projects, so pretty proud of that. Couple air gaps in there. We'll tighten them up. So spray foam is looking pretty good, relatively clean. I'm going to have to definitely clean up these edges, and then the last step will be putting some trim around the perimeter of that. I'll probably do that tomorrow or the next day. Pick you guys up when we get to the trim portion. Today is a new day, but we are going to finish this fridge project by doing the trim that goes around the border to cover up the edges. Our previous fridge had kind of a plastic perimeter. Now we're going to make one out of this cedar trim that I got from Home Depot. Got a pretty sweet setup over here. I borrowed a forklift from the marina and a miter saw, and I have that running off of the camper's inverter solar battery setup. Step one is going to be cut these things to the proper length. Got our trim pieces here. I just test fitted them. They fit pretty darn good. Little gap on this side between the fridge and the trim itself. There's also still an air gap there from where I wasn't able to spray foam on that side of the fridge, so I'll figure out what I'm going to do with that later. For now, we're going to stain these trim pieces and get them set up with a couple of coats before applying them for good. For stain for the trim, we are going with the flavor of Provincial, which is the closest guess I had to what we have going on already in the camper. Let's hope for the best. It's another day. A couple days later, after cutting all that trim and staining it, it's just been drying. I've been tolerating having it in my passenger seat since I don't have a passenger at the moment. Looks pretty sweet, came out nice. Tonight we're gonna get it just nailed up and hopefully check this thing off of our project list. Hammer, trim, I need trim nails, and then we're going. As with most of my jobs, one is slightly longer than the other. Things are less than perfect. We're trying here, but we're also not, a carpenter, so a certain level of imperfection we'll have to do. I should have grabbed a level. Let the truth be known that it took me 3 nails. Third nail, I got it in. First 2 bent, so this will be a long, slow process. I'll show you guys the end result in a second. The trim is up, and it's okay. Looks pretty good on this side. The top on the left side looks fine, but if we come closely over here, that gap, hard to tell. There it is. Now you can see how big it is. It's no more than a paper width, but it's gonna drive me nuts. So top piece is probably gonna get replaced. Thankfully, Home Depot's right down the road, but overall, it's darn good. It's an 8 out of 10 for being done by a hack. After running this fridge for the last 2 weeks or so, it has been awesome. I barely noticed the energy consumption except for on days where it's cloudy or multiple strings of days where it's cloudy. Then of course you do notice the amount of battery that is getting consumed by the fridge. But on days where the sun has been plentiful, the battery has been topped off very well by our 1200 watts of solar, to such a degree that today I ran our hot water heater on electric, which is an item that you can get off of eTrailer.com, the sponsor of this video, the Camco electric heating element for these Atwood water heaters. And I've also been using an induction cooktop every night, a little portable one that I'll show you guys in a future video. And even with running that induction cooktop and it being October 21st as I'm filming this portion of the video, obviously we're losing a little bit of sun every day, it has not been a problem at all for us to end up with a fully recharged battery and a surplus of electricity even after running our fridge all night and all day. Depleting the battery a little bit extra overnight hasn't been a problem at all. The performance of the fridge has been outstanding. The fridge stays at a really constant temperature, barely fluctuates, maybe 2 degrees from 38, up or down either way. Whereas our propane fridge, you would have times where all your veggies were freezing. Or on the flip side, you'd be like, oh man, it is not terribly cold in there. You've got to grab a beer and it'd be super warm. It's also extremely noticeable how much more space there is in this fridge-freezer combo than there was in our previous fridge, especially this freezer. The freezer's huge. I do definitely wish that I switched to a 12-volt fridge earlier. Having been on the road full-time for the last 4 years, we've been going through a 30-pound bottle of propane about every 3 weeks between running our fridge and cooking. We don't really run our hot water heater on propane ever. So those are the 2 sources of propane consumption in our home. And now, because of the fact that our fridge is running on electricity full-time, we'll be able to save that $30 every 3 weeks over the course of many, many years of future RVing and full-timing, to such a point where I'm probably going to sell both of these 30-pound bottles and go down to one singular 20-pound bottle. With having this portable induction cooktop that I was talking about before and having the fridge on electricity, I've only cooked with the propane cooktop 3 times in the course of the last 2 weeks since I left Dalton and Amanda's house in Colorado. But with all that said, I would 100% recommend that you consider upgrading to a Norcold Polar 8 fridge if you had a Norcold N640, N641 fridge like I used to have and what was equipped in very many truck campers in the past. You will 100% be happier with the fridge and freezer functionality, consumption rate than those terrible 3-way fridges that came in these campers from the factory. And if you want to get your own fridge, be sure to check out eTrailer.com. I will have a link in the description below to this direct fridge. Reminder also that the doors are flippable in terms of left or right hand opening. So if you see on their website that they have just a right hand in stock, and you need a left hand, know that you'll have the ability to switch that over. Don't let that deter you from buying the best fridge on the market, in my opinion. And last but not least, thank you guys for watching this video. Big thank you to our Patreons, and be sure to subscribe, like. We have a bunch more upgrade videos coming for you this fall before we head down to Baja, Mexico for another winter of fun in the sun. Thanks, bye.